And Nancy Cordes joins me now from Capitol Hill for more on this packed week of confirmation hearings. Nancy, we heard in your piece that there certainly has been some criticism surrounding the scheduling of these hearings. What's the argument from critics, and is it a legitimate argument?
Well, what Democrats are saying is that Republicans are packing so many of these nominees into single days on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and Thursday. First, because they want to essentially bury the news if any one of these nominees does poorly or says controversial things. On Wednesday, for example, there are 5 nominees all testifying on one day, and that is the same day that Donald Trump is holding his highly anticipated news conference about his conflict of interest plans in New York. And so Democrats say that Republicans are trying to essentially bury these confirmation hearings. Republicans say they are doing no such thing. They are simply trying to give Mr. Trump the same opportunity that President Obama had when he came into office, which was that more than half a dozen of his nominees were confirmed on the day that he was inaugurated. They say Mr. Trump needs to be able to hit the ground running the same way that Mr. Obama does. But you have this Office of Ethics saying essentially that they are being swamped, that they're not ready, that they are still trying to work through some of these nominees who have much more complicated financial disclosures than past nominees, because so many of them do have vast financial holdings, and they are pleading for more time.
Yeah, in fact, 2 of the nominees are billionaires, and that's part of the problem. It's complicated to dig through all their sort of complicated financial background.
Right. And that's just this week. There are more billionaires coming up in the weeks ahead. But, you know, it's certainly a challenge for ethics officials. Republicans argue that most of the disclosure forms have now been examined. Democrats are arguing that some of these nominees should be handing over their tax returns as well. That's customary in a lot of cases, but only a couple of these nominees have handed over their tax returns, and it doesn't appear that we're likely to see those from any other nominees at this point, Anne Marie.
All right. Well, there are bound to be fireworks this week. In talking to Democrats on Capitol Hill, which nominees would you say they are most intent on blocking?
Well, they are focused most on nominees who fall into what they see as a couple of categories. Either nominees who they don't believe have the experience to do the jobs that they've been tapped to do. Folks like Ben Carson, who has been tapped by the president-elect to run the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Democrats argue that Mr. Carson has no experience in this field and won't be able to run a department that is this complicated and in a field that he just doesn't know very well. Then you've got another batch of nominees that Democrats argue hold views that are antithetical to the job that they're about to do. For example, Scott Pruitt, who has been tapped to run the EPA, is on the record being a climate change denier. And Democrats say you can't protect the environment if you don't understand what is harming it.
Let's talk a little bit about Rex Tillerson, nominee for Secretary of State. Obviously, Russia is going to come up, and we heard in your piece Senator John McCain say that he likes some of what he's heard, but he still has some lingering doubts. What will Tillerson need to say to settle anyone who's doubting whether or not he can be tough with Russia?
What he'll need to say to satisfy Democrats and, as you pointed out, some Republicans is that he is not buddy-buddy with Vladimir Putin. Yes, he has a relationship with Putin, but that is solely a function of the fact that he was a businessman doing work for a company that has a lot of business, ExxonMobil, in Russia. And he's going to say, what would you expect from a CEO of an oil company? Of course, I had a relationship with the Russian government, but that does not mean that I take Russia's side on an entire host of issues, or that I have a special friendship with Vladimir Putin and condone a lot of the things that he has done, including things that many senators believe have harmed the United States. So that's the case that he's going to have to make in the hearing room, and the case that he's been making, frankly, in some of these one-on-one meetings with senators who have come out of those meetings saying that they feel a lot better about Mr. Tillerson after they've heard what he had to say in those conversations.
Nancy Cordes in Washington. Thanks a lot, Nancy.
You're welcome, Anne Marie.